Good evening and welcome to City Limits. My name is Norm McCourt, the host of City Limits, the show that provides you with information about the people, places, and events that shape the character of our community. Joining me tonight is Lance Lacombe, your Manager of Public Information.
Good to see you, Mr. Mayor. How are you doing today?
Nice seeing you also. Well, we're going to try to do this in several parts tonight.
Sure.
And we'll start with, let's just kind of talk about MSD and how they were formed and how they're structured. And then we'll get into some more other things that you wanted to talk about
Sure.
today.
Well, you know, the roots of MSD, even though we were created by a vote of the citizenry in 1954, the roots of MSD go back to the 1850s, to when, even before Abraham Lincoln was president. The first sewers were built in downtown St. Louis, and some of those sewers are still in service today. As you had the county develop in the late 19th century, early 20th century, a lot of municipalities, individual subdivisions built their own sewer districts. Going into the 1940s and the 1950s, you had sewage going to creeks and streams, and there was a need for overall management. And in response to that, as I alluded to in 1954, the citizens of the city and the county voted to create MSD to take over all those sewer districts. And between now and 1954, we have taken in 79 separate sewer districts that today comprise the fourth largest sewer system in the United States, right behind New York, Chicago, and LA.
It's amazing.
It is.
What really is amazing is that all these were built at different times, probably a lot of them to different specifications, and now you're responsible for all of them and tying them all together.
We are. Even to this day, we're still going through and what I call harmonizing the system, identifying how they were all built, where they are in some cases, how they function with the rest of our system. Our system, because of that fragmentation, was never built with any regionalism in mind. And from a sewer perspective, regionalism meaning you have large treatment plants that provide water treatment for large segments of our population. And so a lot of what we've been doing is connecting these disparate systems and making sure that all the sewage gets treated. And we are able to achieve that today in dry weather, but during wet weather, heavy rainstorms, we do have a problem with overflows and basement backups.
When you were talking about they started in the 1850s, some of these are still in use, you were saying?
Still in use.
What was the construction like in the 1850s when they did them versus what they're doing today?
Sure, in the 1850s, they were using brick sewers, brick and mortar, very large sewers, also partially made of wood, oak, that hard timber that was in great abundance then. And because those sewers, we think, wow, 150, 60, 70 years, well, they stay wet all the time. So there's not as much stress, if you would, on them. They don't dry out and get wet again, dry out and get wet. So we still do have some sewers that have wooden tops and brick bottoms, and they function fine. Obviously, they will need to be replaced at some point. But as you had all those individual sewer districts, they all use different materials, different design standards. You know, in the city and the near county, we have what's called a combined sewer system. You build that to a certain stormwater level. You want to be able to handle a certain size storm, and they were all built at different stormwater levels. When you get out into the county, you have different topographical challenges. You know, some of the smaller sewer districts just served subdivisions, so there wasn't a lot of thought other than, hey, let's get the homes hooked up and we'll just make sure that happens, and not give a lot of thought to lifespan and duration.
One of the things that somebody was telling me about one time, that there is a lot of difference between the way the sewers are. Some of the sewers are combined sewer, which means it's sanitary and stormwater, and some of them are separated. So I guess the newer subdivisions would be the two separated systems?
They'd be separated, and obviously you know your facts on this. We have in the city of St. Louis and the near county about 22, 23 municipalities. They are served by a combined sewer system. That means that the water, stormwater and wastewater go through and are conveyed by the same sewer pipe. Same pipe handles both wastewater and stormwater. In the early 20th century, 1930s, 1940s, that combined sewer fell out of vogue. And online came separate systems, and separate refers exactly to that, a separate stormwater system and a separate wastewater system. So both of those separate systems, the stormwater and wastewater side of it, were smaller than the combined sewer pipes. You have much smaller wastewater pipes to serve the community that were designed just to handle wastewater, and of course the stormwater sewers were supposed to just handle stormwater.
When you treat those, if you treat a combined one, that has to go to a treatment plant. Does the one that's separated is just the does the stormwater go directly back into the river, and then the solid waste part go to the
Correct.
treatment plant?
The
So it actually saves a little bit, doesn't it?
Yep, the stormwater sewer should lead to an area creek or stream. The combined system, obviously, because it's one system, all of that goes to a treatment plant. So we do end up treating a lot of rainwater and other extra water that gets into the system. But ideally, in a separate system, you should just have wastewater only going to the sewer plant, the treatment plant, and then what goes in the stormwater system should go into a local creek or stream.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a little more efficient.
It's
It's a lot more efficient for you all in that you don't have to run all that through the
certainly,
treatment plant.
you don't have to run as much through a treatment plant. I would also present, though, to you, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, because with the combined sewer system, when you have a rainstorm that comes along, you have all that gunk off the street that gets flushed off in the first few minutes of a storm, gasoline, road oil, grit, salt. And in a combined system, all that does go to a treatment plant. That gets treated, that water is cleaned before it's returned to the environment. In the separate system, because you don't have those stormwater systems hooked up to treatment plants, you do have all that going into creeks and streams. So we are required by federal and state regulations to make sure we're taking steps with the community to remediate that and clean that up as much as possible as well. So yes, less of a demand in our treatment systems, but it does still leave a purpose there, that, or a void that we have to fill in terms of what we need to do to protect the environment.
How many treatment plants do you have?
Sure, we have we have 5 major watersheds that we encompass, and we operate on a watershed basis. And right now we have 7 treatment plants in those 5 watersheds. Our southernmost treatment plant, the Lower Merrimack watershed, we've eliminated over the years a couple sewer lagoons, which are treatment facilities, and we're looking to consolidate further. And ideally, the ideal setup wherever you go in the country is to have one, if you would, regional watershed-wide treatment plant for each of those watersheds. The ideal setup would be 5, for 5 watersheds. Right now we're at 7. We're going to stay there for 7 for a while, and we may find ourselves consolidating maybe 1 or 2 of those treatment plants in South St. Louis County. We have to see what the demands on the system would be to do that. We also have to see where the regulations take us in future years.
Sounds like a complicated process.
It is.
I'm sure it really is.
When I got in this business, I never thought it would be like this, but it is a complicated business.
Yeah, we had the municipal league had a tour of one of your treatment plants maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it was amazing how it's set up and how automated it is and how it goes through each of the various steps. But what was really amazing is they had a map there that showed all these different sewer systems and so on.
And they just blob
it's like
out.
blood. It looks like blood vessels running through your human body.
Exactly.
There's just that many treatment plants.
Every street, every alley, there's a sewer system running down. If you were to map them out, and I do have a map in my office, it just blots out the city and the county with the colors from the different sewer systems.
You really, when you think of MSD or even Union Electric, you think of what you see in your neighborhood, but that is replicated throughout St. Louis County, and every neighborhood has that same infrastructure, and it's truly amazing.
I think there's a line in the musical Phantom of the Opera where they allude to there's a city beneath a city because the Phantom lives in the sewers. But outside of that, there is a city beneath our feet in terms of our tunnels, our sewers, the water lines, the electrical conduits, the gas lines, steam pipes, all this, just this massive system, which we don't see, we probably don't appreciate as much as we should, but allows us to live, work, and play every day, and we don't give it a second thought for the most part.
Right. You go to plant a tree in your yard.
Yes.
That's when you find
Missouri One call.
Yeah, that's when you find where the water lines and everything are. How you mentioned earlier regulations. What agencies are you regulated by? Whenever I know the EPA looks at stuff. What looks at stuff? MSD. I mean, who do you respond to?
Yeah, well, MSD, our industry follows under the Clean Water Act from 1972, one of the most monumental pieces of environmental legislation of our country's history. And EPA is given the Environmental Protection Agency is given primary enforcement for that from a federal perspective. And the state of Missouri is what's referred to as a delegated state. EPA, in layman terms, delegates many of its enforcement and regulatory powers to the state. In our case, through the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, or MDNR. And MDNR is the primary regulator that we deal with. We also deal with EPA quite a bit, though, but it's both those agencies that have purview over what MSD does. And then we also have a regulatory function in the community as well in terms of making sure local regulations are enforced. So we do have a regulatory function, kind of like a junior regulator, if you would, in terms of our mandates.
Okay. That's quite a lot of regulations
It
you
is.
have to
It
go
is.
through.
It's, you know, it's the 21st century,
The
unfortunately.
clean water one, I mean, I know a lot about that one, and that is a massive amount of regulations and things and hoops you have to jump through.
Yeah,
So,
and certainly when you look at the time that existed when it was created, we had rivers lighting on fire in this country. And obviously over the last 40 plus years, we have made tremendous strides in cleaning up our water, our environment, and hopefully we'll be able to continue doing that for many years to come.
sounds good. Well, before we go into our
Sure.
next segment here, we take a break and go to our next segment, ask everybody that's on the show, where did they go to high school? You know, it's a St. Louis question.
Right, right.
Where did you go to high school?
I'm not from St. Louis. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I went to Paul K. Cousino High School.
Okay, well, if we got any viewers out there from Detroit, they'll know
Shout
where
out
that's
to the
at.
Mitten State. We all carry a map with us.
There you go. Sounds good. Please stay tuned after these short messages, and we'll come back with our second segment, which will be concerning Project Clear and fog. So you got something to learn here, so please come back after this message.